I've got a lot more questions for you because I know you also mentor young adult authors, and I've got some questions for you about marketing, all kinds of fun stuff we're going to talk to. But by God, before we get to any of that, let's talk about what I want you to see. Again, available now, esteemed audience, wherever fine books are sold. So because I'm terrible about summarizing other people's books, I'll tell you my summary. That's not what I wrote. What book did you read? Why don't you tell the esteemed audience a little bit about what I want you to see?
What I want you to see is the story of Sabine. Sabine is a first-year student at an art institute in Southern California. She is an incredibly talented painter who has won this very, very prestigious scholarship. And so she's thrilled to be at Kalinva, the California Institute for the Visual Arts. And one of the things that nobody knows is that this scholarship, not only does it cover her tuition, her supplies, etc., but it gives her a stipend, which allows her to rent a cozy room in a woman's house. No one knows that she had spent the 6 months prior to coming to Kalinva, she had spent that time sleeping in her car following the death of her mom and the loss of their apartment. So the scholarship means everything to her. It is her future. It is her, it is being able to learn and express herself and become the artist she wants to be. And it really is a means to her very survival. The problem is that she's been at the school for 6 weeks, and her painting instructor, Colin Krell, who is also the head of the painting department, hates her work. He is savage in his criticisms of her work in class, and she is terrified that she is going to lose her scholarship. Like many of us, when we are lost and afraid, she makes a series of not so great choices. And those choices eventually lead to her being put in a position where she is wrapped up in a crime that she didn't intend to commit. And how is she going to survive that? How is she going to get out of the situation she's in? So that's the story.
Oh, you are a bookseller. That was fantastic. You told me the character, what's at stake, what she wants. Oh, that's fantastic. You gave a great description of the villain. Well, villainish. You've got this down, man. You don't need me to tell you that, but you've got it. That's fantastic. So I was shocked in reading the supplemental material for your book to learn that 1 in 7 college students is homeless. And it's America. You know, we only care about 1% of our population. But how did you become aware of the homeless population, and what attracted you to want to write about this?
You know, it's funny because I think part of what I find in my writing is that it usually comes out of something that I love, like art, and I'm fascinated with art crime. But a lot of times my writing also has this, it comes from something that's bothering me. I live in LA. Right now, there are an estimated 60,000 people in Los Angeles County who are experiencing homelessness. You can't drive through LA without seeing tents. I was walking my dog around a reservoir in a trendy neighborhood, and I started noticing RVs parked along the road, and it wasn't like, oh, the cousins are visiting Aunt Sadie. These were RVs, people were living in them. And as I was exploring my character of Sabine, and I was thinking about why would she be so desperate? What would cause her desperation? I realized I had to strip her of everything. When I began looking at homelessness among college students, I was totally shocked. You talked about being shocked by the numbers. I don't think we really have a perfect number for how many people are affected. The number 1 in 7 comes from a research study which was done by the Hope Center out of Temple University, which looks at homelessness among college students. They had done a large-scale survey of students who were in the California community college system. Now, there are 2.1 million students, and they had surveys from 40,000 of them. So that's a very large-scale survey. And they found that 1 in 7 were experiencing homelessness, and a much more significant number were experiencing housing insecurity, which is when you aren't sure you can make your rent. You made your rent this month, but you didn't really eat. Or you made your rent, but you couldn't pay your utility bill. Or, your housing insecurity and food insecurity go hand in hand. And so I had no idea before I got into this and before I really started looking at the numbers that this is not just a problem in community colleges. This is a problem in 2-year schools, in 4-year schools. It's a problem, definitely a problem in California and in other parts of the country. But it's worsened here because the lack of affordable housing in California is driving almost like a second wave of homelessness. And so that's what we've got that we're dealing with right now.
So something like that. Well, I have a few questions. Let's start with when you're just looking at that topic from the outside, and we'll get to art also. I promise this teamed audience, but I want to talk about this a little bit first. When you're looking at this project from the outside, it must seem so unbelievably huge and daunting to try to tackle even a piece of it for a book. So how do you do research to make sure that what you're reporting is accurate? And then how do you decide out of all those stories that you could tell about homelessness and college students that Sabine's the story we want? And it's Sabine's story. It's not like here's the stand-in for all homeless teens. This is one homeless teen. But at the same time, you do want to make sure that you hit some of these most relevant things that you're finding in your research. So how do you winnow that down to something you can address in a story? And how do you do your research to make sure that you're accurate?
Good questions. First, my story is very much Sabine's story. And I'm not trying to tell, this isn't a term paper. I don't have to cover all of the experiences of everyone who is experiencing this. So I really had to look at it from what had happened to Sabine. We don't spend a lot of time in the book, as you know, presenting her as someone during a period of homelessness. You see Sabine's experiences in the past through the sketches, where she looks at a sketch she had drawn in the past year, and she talks about the memories of what happened to her. Really, what we are seeing in What I Want You to See is the aftermath. What the experience has, how it has affected her today. And one of the most important things that I was concerned about was representing someone who, I'm trying to get this exactly right. I think it's really important when you talk to people who, or you read about, you read interviews with students who are experiencing homelessness. It's really important to understand that they do not want to be seen as different. They don't want to be seen as damaged because, there's so many stigmas that are associated with this. And they want to be seen as people. They want to be seen through their personalities. They don't want to be labeled. And that is a very important message that I want to come through, because Sabine says again and again, I don't want to be labeled. I don't want to be called that homeless artist. I want to be recognized for my talents and my abilities. And I think that is the most important thing that I'm saying about homelessness among college students is look at the person, look at them. Don't get so attached to all of these assumptions about what they are like or what their life has been like. Look at them. Okay.
And of course, Sabine is showing us what she wants us to see. I'm clever. I figured it out. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Break my hand, pat myself on the back. So let's talk research though. How do you go about, I'm assuming that you did you spend a few nights on the street trying that out? Or
No, and as you know, if you read my book, I don't show scenes of sleeping on the street. The book is very much set in the present day. That wasn't the story that I wanted to tell. I have a number of friends who work with people who are experiencing homelessness, and they were terrific resources. I also have a young friend who lived in a shelter when she was in high school, and she was a fabulous resource for me as well. And she was someone who really was a great role model, because she reminds me of Sabine, where she has tremendous talent and a sense of self. And, there's so many assumptions that people make about, I had more than one conversation with my editors about, does Sabine feel shame? Is she ashamed? Does she feel shame for being homeless? And I really had to defend that, because my position was, she didn't cause her homelessness. It's not her identity. She doesn't think she's bad or wrong. She's angry. She's angry, and she's lost because what she really lost was her mom.